Dateline Arlington. There is just one more meeting before the final vote of the Washington Lee High School Renaming Committee to choose a name that will survive for decades, unassailable and not offensive to anyone, and the 18 of the total 21 members of the committee on this night were hard at work trying to solve the problem, or, at least exerting their best efforts in the most educated district in the nation that, we are told, consequently broke records to vote for Hillary Rodham Clinton, their hero, and most recently for Congressman Donald Bayer, their local favorite son, who somehow, according to the Washington Post, continued to mistakenly call the embassy where he was appointed to serve as the U.S. ambassador by Barack Obama, the dealership, as in the automobile dealership where he used to work before he got that trophy appointment to add to his political resume. You have to wonder if this is a latent defect because after serving 2 whole terms in the U.S. Congress, this same erudite legislator could not explain what the bells that ring in Congress mean, nor why he has the worst roll call voting record in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. Could it be because the bells tell congressmen when they have to vote? We cannot say. And not for fear of any possible retaliation, of course. No further comment on that, at this time. Moving on. Significantly, like the last meeting of the renaming committee, an Arlington police officer was on duty to ensure order at this community engagement meeting, for whatever reason. The Arlington Public Schools have not issued a formal statement. However, one vocal alumnus, Dean Fleming, received a personal message from Assistant Superintendent Linda Erdos to inform him that his behavior at the previous meeting was disruptive and to place him on notice, unlike anti-abortion counselors who were arrested in Alexandria in the second busiest abortion mill in the Commonwealth, who were arrested and charged with trespassing just 6 minutes after they entered by an armada of a guesstimated 20 law enforcement officers plus emergency services vehicles in December 20, 17, after it was claimed that they were praying out loud, singing religious songs and laying on the floor, like one would do as a Muslim in the call of prayer. How they were able to complete all of these actions in less than 6 minutes and be subjected to arrest by police officers who responded from over 10 minutes away, there is no official explanation, nor any explanation why the surveillance video that captured this event was suppressed by the Commonwealth Attorney in the court to convict all involved and convict one participant in absentia while his appeal was pending removal on grounds of discrimination to the federal court, the first removal action in over 30 years. It is certainly not intolerance because all of the signs in the beautiful yards fronting luxurious homes of affluent progressives say that hate has no home here. And, we must assume that we all know how to read, and do not require a literacy test to vote, write, or proof of identification. Also significantly to note here is that the sole Latina member of the committee was not present, and has not been seen at a meeting since the first meeting when she expressed her desire to rename the high school where the largest minority group is Latinos, Chavez High School. Nor was there any mention of a current declaratory judgment action to declare the policy implementation plan unconstitutional, as applied, because it discriminates against minorities even mentioned. You would think that, like the potential $1 million cost of the name change, that would be important information to disseminate, but Assistant Superintendent Linda Erdos, who has repeatedly told the committee that she would provide them everything they need to know, has decided to withhold that information. Maybe it is a state secret, and it is a good thing that the committee does not have access to Hillary Clinton's personal server, or it is certain that Special Prosecutor Mueller would have another investigation to impeach President Donald Trump for Russian collusion, but we cannot say. So, what did the educated and enlightened members of the renaming committee discuss, as they attempted to narrow the potential new names for Washington Lee High School? It may surprise you if you possess the internet skills of a 5-year-old and know how to just Google. One parent is convinced that the Marquis de Lafayette was an American citizen and would be a perfect replacement for Lieutenant General Robert E. Lee, despite the fact that he was a French nobleman who came to America only to help the colonists fight the Revolutionary War, and later returned to his native country to support the monarchy during the French Revolution, the same country where he died. It's definitely not a case of birthright citizenship, as is being discussed across the Potomac River not far from his statue and park, and, incidentally, an issue that the drafter of that provision specifically stated to deny birthright citizenship, as if legislative history mattered at all, anymore. Others are fond of the name of Lafayette for the former slave and soldier who served under his command, and who was so impressed that he added the name Lafayette to his own, James Armstead. But how this educated and enlightened assembly believes that he was an African, despite birth in Virginia, denying him the same birthright citizenship they want to bestow on every babe of an immigrant who happens to be born here, we cannot say. And how he managed, according to these erudite scholars, to attain the rank of general when the first African-American officer was not commissioned until 1877, when Lieutenant Henry O. Flipper graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point, we cannot say. Maybe he was a sergeant general when he was detailed to serve as a spy in the army of General Cornwallis. We cannot say. Still, do you think that if they erected a statue or named a building after Henry O. Flipper in Arlington, it would prompt some curiosity to engage in rigorous scholarship, or even a glance at Wikipedia? Well, the known felon, Terence Sims, II, who is often seen in the company of Democrat Party luminaries like Terry McAuliffe, Tim Kaine, and Hillary Clinton, and who graduated from West Point, making him an instant authority on General Lee, somehow did not know about him, or even mention his general court-martial and dishonorable discharge as just a second lieutenant, a characterization of service that was not changed until President Clinton pardoned him, long after President Ford granted the pardon to General Lee, whose amnesty paperwork was somehow lost immediately after the Civil War. In any event, it must have been something far worse than statutory burglary, sexual assault, and various other felonies Captain Terence Sims acquired while on active duty without receiving a dishonorable discharge. But, again, we cannot say. But the most vocal committee member, Dana Raphael, the vocal Arlington Democrat who somehow got very lucky to not only speak at the school board meetings, but also get a coveted seat on the 21-member committee, listing as her home address the home of her parents that she inherited, was determined to replace the name of General Lee with Harriet Tubman, who, she says they, yes just they, called the General, which she stated was really cool. Perhaps that is a technical term that all Sorensen scholars use. We cannot say. But, a simple Google query will disclose that Harriet Tubman was called the General by the traitor abolitionist John Brown, who was executed for his crimes of raiding a military arsenal in Harper's Ferry, and captured by a raid that required Colonel Robert E. Lee to be called from bereavement leave at Arlington House, where Arlingtonians are convinced he spent the time viciously beating slaves and not tending to the estate from which he emancipated his wife's slaves, who were educated, according to the Custis family custom, in defiance of the law, and all before President Lincoln freed the slaves in the rebelling states, while maintaining slavery in 5 Union states throughout the entire war, who were not freed until the ratification of the 13th Amendment. In fact, President Lincoln, as you can verify at the Lincoln Memorial, stated that if he could preserve the Union without freeing one slave, he would do it, but that fact does not impeach his name as a potential new name for Washington Lee High School, making a beautiful statement to students of color in our beautifully diverse schools, pairing a man who owned over 300 slaves he retained until he released them with his dying hands with a woman who was an unindicted co-conspirator with John Brown, but who wasn't that much of a general because she made a promise, but could not find anyone to help the revolt. Perhaps she generally provided assistance, and, hence, the name stuck. We cannot say, but the Communist Party of America believe that is very important, and so does Dana Raphael. So, it must be pretty damn important, right? Just like Governor Andrew Cuomo, who adopted the Communist Party motto that America was never great. But we are proud to be an American where at least we know we're free, and we're glad to thank the men who died and gave that right to me, etc. etc., right? But, the most significant contribution of the night was the suggestion of the sole black member guaranteed a vote on the 21-member committee, representing all of the black churches and all of the black organizations, including the NAACP, who also, apparently, has no problem at all with a majority of Caucasian persons choosing a name that will not offend her. Perhaps she missed that whole Cassius Clay slave name thing, or the whipping scene in the television miniseries Roots, when Kunta Kinte refuses to take the 2 Bob name of Toby, even after several lashings while tied to a post. But, He also left the plantation, even after they chopped off his foot, and most African Americans won't leave the Democrat Party if you killed all of their babies in abortion in greater numbers than are being born. It's a math thing, they just don't understand. Tragic, perhaps, but we cannot say. Anywho. The elected deputy for colored peoples likes the name of Booker T. Washington to replace General George Washington. Beyond the obvious confusion that might cause, like trying to tell anyone who has studied American history knows that Lafayette is not the guy with the statue in front of the White House and way in front of the statue stuck in the rear of his park for Baron von Steuben, whose drill and ceremony is still used in the modern military. As stupid as that might seem, is the African general who was neither African or even a damn officer. There is a historical problem with the name of the man who Spike Lee calls handkerchief head Booker T. Washington, because his Atlanta Compromise essentially told black people to accept segregation, and go and get drunk and dance together and have lots of babies. He said, and I quote, "In all things social as separate as Don Bayer's four fingers, and in all things for progress, one as the hand." Or maybe he did not say the part about Don Bayer, but we cannot say. It's a fact. Don Bayer has one hand with four fingers, but he believes that if you have a child with a disability you should be able to have an abortion, and he calls a promoter of infanticide, Peter Singer, his moral philosophy hero. Try to reconcile that. He even tells jokes about it to kids. Gimme 4. Sounds kind of twisted to this reporter, but I did not vote for him, like record numbers of voters in Virginia's 8th congressional district just did, especially educated black woman like the one who wants to rename Washington Lee High School after a black segregationist. If that is okay, why can't Major Mike Webb be a white supremacist? It's like the same damn thing. Maybe it's only acceptable if you are a Democrat like Senator Byrd, the mentor of Hillary Clinton. We cannot say. And, speaking of Major Mike Webb, he was the deplorable who sued the school because the committee discriminated against black people, while the NAACP, the moral voices of the black churches and the black member on the committee were doing the okey doke. Well, after the meeting, he was verbally accosted by a very concerned and flustered Caucasian member of the committee who boasted of his own work for the State Department, because he said that Major Mike Webb had betrayed his people, as if he was the one robbing $1 million from addressing the achievement gap that produced not even one recognized student for achievement in academics in 2018, and only for athletics, perpetuating a stereotype African Americans reject as fake news and false. Why they are ready to say they will boycott football until Colin Kaepernick is returned to the NFL after being expelled for taking a knee to symbolically represent that he was advancing the needs of black people being killed by police. Perhaps if you are distinguished in high school for being an outstanding athlete that make you a leader, and when you protest you should not have to pay a price, like losing your multi-million-dollar contract to play football on television, and have to suffer by on advertising royalties with your image plastered on a billboard in Times Square to encourage your followers to purchase more sneakers and dream of being great athlete leaders, too. We cannot say. But, let's take a quick look at the final moments of this news in progress, as the members discuss their plans for the future. It's like watching the signing of the Declaration of Independence, albeit from all known reality, right?
Determined to erase history, apparently. Simply amazing, right?
Plans for the future. And, as Walter Cronkite used to say, and that's the way it was. Good night. And good evening. Still, as Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. stated, injustice anywhere threatens justice everywhere. Coffee is for closers. Attention. Interest. Decision. Action. Do I have your attention? I know that you are interested. D. Have you made your decision for Christ? A. Now is the time for action. But you have the right to remain silent. Stay tuned for updates as they develop. We get the news as it happens and we get it to you before anyone else. Back to you, in the studio, Mo.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.